To another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. And in today, we have a very special guest, Ronnie Bernick. Ronnie is the founder of Hot Corner Athletics, which he founded in 2016, and since then he has worked with over 450 plus college athletes, 100 plus MLB draft picks, trained, and many more athletes that have been impacted beyond the game. In our conversation today, we talk so much about the development side of athletes, whether it's the mental side, whether it's the physical side, the skill side. He dives into all of that and has an incredible passion for wanting to give back and make a difference for the next generation of leaders from the baseball diamond, but even more sports than that. So without Hello and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast. Ronnie, I'm thrilled to have you on because baseball has a special place in my heart as well. We're going to have a great conversation today, so welcome to the show.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. I'm thankful I reached out. I mean, we got this going pretty quick, so I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. What kind of impact has the game of baseball made on your life?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I think every person has a story, and adversity is a huge part of my life. I dealt with a lot as a kid, and baseball for a long time was my outlet, and being able to kind of use the game as a way to learn about life and have coaches that have taught me so much about life and the skills that we can take from the game is something that I really liked about watching your podcast. Has been a big reason why I've stayed in the game. I don't play professionally. I didn't have the opportunity to, and being able to kind of take that and move it into, impacting the lives of kids that I am coaching. A big reason why I'm still in the game is because of the impact it's made on my life. Being able to get past some of those issues that I've had, and being able to go somewhere and have a place where I could learn and grow, has been a huge reason why I love the game so much and why I still do it.
Absolutely. And can you share some of those stories of, the coaches that you had and some of the maybe specific life lessons that you took with you then and still live with you now?
Yeah, absolutely. The late coach Tim Banner, who was at Chatham University in Pittsburgh, was in the travel baseball space growing up for me. And, I really loved the game. And to be honest with you, I come from a single parent home. That was part of the adversity I was dealing with. It was a toxic environment for a long time. And to be honest with you, my teenage years, I felt like dad. And, I wanted to have my own space and I wanted to have my own place to go. And I really, as a family, we just really couldn't afford for me to travel the country to play baseball. Like, it just really wasn't in the cards for us. And, this coach was like, he took me in and provided an opportunity for me. It gave me a chance to basically be on a team that really I shouldn't have been on because I couldn't be there. I couldn't take care of my business that way. And there was a family on the team that they just took me under their wing and brought me on the trips with them and provided an experience baseball wise that when I talk to kids now, it's like, you guys don't realize how lucky you are and what a privilege it is to be able to do what you do every day and travel the country to play a game, and what our parents sacrificed for us to be able to do that, and just being super grateful for those opportunities. But then, even for me, like I was a little troubled. I used to find myself in trouble. I never got in crazy trouble, but I used to find myself in the wrong environment. And, this coach just did a really good job of teaching me, like, you are a product of the people that you surround yourself with. And I am going to be the guy that's going to surround you with great people and great kids and good families. And I want you to learn from that and learn what those people do and why they're in their situations and positions that they're in with their life. And by being in that environment, it taught me that I am in complete control of the decisions that I make, the path that I'm on, who I'm around. And even today, I still hold that very closely. Like, the people that I surround myself with, I'm very careful. Not in a bad way, in a sense of like, blocking people out, but more of who am I giving my time to? You're a product of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And so I'm very careful on who's in that circle. And, it's really a testament to him teaching me that, I have the freedom to make those decisions and I don't have to allow my circumstances to dictate who I become. And I think that's really what I learned as a teenager. And then even going into college, like, I was committed to play baseball at Duquesne University. They dropped their baseball program, and another adverse situation where I thought I had everything figured out. And Canisius College and Mike McCrae, who's now the head baseball coach at William & Mary, gave me an opportunity when he didn't have to. Again, going into college, it was, I had this little chip on my shoulder that, somebody owed me something, or that, everybody was out to get me. And he taught me how to be a man and how to be in control of myself. And I dictate whether I get on the field, and I dictate whether I'm a good teammate. And, those are the kinds of things that I took for granted as a younger kid. And looking back on it now that I have impact on kids, I'm like, wow, I'm just so thankful for all of those experiences, because I could have become a completely different person if it wasn't for those two specific coaches that gave everything to me, right? And so now that I'm in the space where I have a chance to impact kids now, I don't take that lightly. I know that I have a powerful role in their development as people. And so, that's kind of what I carry into, how I coach kids too. I want them to make sure that the experiences that they have with me, they can carry through life, and it's a positive impact, so that by the time they move on to getting married and having kids, or whatever industry they decide to go in, they can look back and say that I had a really good impact on their life.
Yeah, we share a lot of similar philosophies in that regard. And I think it is a really good point that you bring up, that you probably talk to your players about the privilege just to be able to play a sport, whether even you're traveling or playing locally, right? Like, it's still a big time and financial commitment, especially now, in the baseball and the basketball worlds. It's a year-round commitment for parents,
Yep.
and it's a lot more expensive than maybe back in the 80s and 90s when you were playing in the park and playing in Little League. And so to take your game to the next level, it requires a lot of, love, care, and support from, coaches that you had. And I'm sure those coaches made an impact on you, which made you want to give that back. And can you talk about how the transition you made from, being a player, obviously, to collegiate coach, but something made you want to, impact and really work with youth?
Yeah. So initially, when I graduated from college, I said, I want to go into the college game, and I want to coach the best players in the country, and I want to be, this big time baseball coach in college. And I realized that if I do that, that's great, and I'm impacting 35 to 40 people a year. But I said, there are so many communities that have kids that want to improve and want to get better, and 1% of us play professionally. So if I work with 35 or 40 kids, maybe one or two of those guys ends up getting drafted and moving on. And I said, is that really the long-term impact that I want to have? And and the answer was no. And I was in the college game, and I really appreciated my experience in the college game, and I learned a lot through that. But as I was sitting back and thinking about my life, I said, how can I impact thousands and thousands of kids positively? And it was initially by me just training and doing a good job and helping kids get to whatever that next level was, whether it was just making a modified or junior varsity or varsity team, or getting to college or professional. And, whatever that world was for them, I wanted to be a part of it. And so I got into the development space, and I don't call it lessons, and I don't call it, private training. It's development. It's human development. It's player development. It's sports performance development. It's anything that I can help develop a person to become a better version of themselves. And that was a real big piece to why I moved into what I do now. And I always said that if I can coach thousands of players, that would be great. And now I realize that, I have a cap on how many kids I can impact. So now my passion is to coach coaches. I want to coach coaches to be able to coach players, to be able to coach kids. And, the more I get into coaching coaches and being on things like this and impacting people, I realize that this impact is going to go far beyond a number that I can hold on to say I worked with X number of players. I hope that I can work with thousands of coaches that can work with thousands of kids. And I think a better impact I can give to coaches and players, the better the game is and the better sports are. And the more people understand the impact of sports outside of just performance, winning championships, signing for a big contract, whatever the case is, there's so many life skills to gain from this. And the more coaches I can impact, the more players I can impact, we can do that together.
Absolutely. And I love that. I can't wait to dive more into the coaching coaches aspect, because that's, something I'm actually really fascinated in, because you can expand your reach in that regard. But before we do that, I just want to talk about development, and I want to talk about, specific development, maybe not necessarily sports specific development, because there are a lot of different coaches that are listening, basketball, baseball, those are kind of, it's a different realm. But when we talk about development, you're talking about people development, human development. Can you share your philosophy on how you want to develop, young athletes into becoming just better people, better leaders, better athletes in general?
Yeah. So I started I started by saying, you know what, if I can help kids become more skilled, they're going to have a better experience in the sport. And that was just young and learning, right? And then I said, well, what if we can train their body and the skills? Okay, now we're getting onto something. Now we're talking about the body connection to skill. And I was like, well, we're missing the big piece, and the big piece is mindset. So I created this philosophy called, the mind body skill philosophy. And by every single kid that we coach, the number one thing that you want to train is their mindset and how they actually get through the failures in adversity. And the reason why I love baseball is it's such a failure sport. It's a sport that you realistically, if you look at any number, like, we aren't successful. We fail way more than we succeed. And when you look at it, if I can start by training the mindset of understanding goals, dreams, visualization, how to stay centered, not look too much in the past and too much in the future, and to focus way more on the process and the journey than where you're trying to go. It's so cliche to talk about that. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, process over outcome, journey over destination. But really, that's where we're made. We're made in the process. We're made in the journey. And when you finally get to the destination that you're going to, or you're done doing what you're doing, you're going to realize that you had so much more fun in the process and the journey that you were on that you wish you could go back to that. And so I try to get a lot of the kids to understand that I don't know where your career is going to end up. And I hope for everybody it's in the Hall of Fame, but I don't know where it's going to end up. But let's enjoy the now, and let's try and improve 1% today, because if we can enjoy the right now, and we do that tomorrow, and we do that the next day, and we compound that over time, you're going to be very happy with the way that things end up. And if you focus too much on the destination, most of the time we fall short of that. So if we can focus so much more on the process, I think we have fun. And then from the mindset, once we have developed a really good mindset, and I'm very big on meditation and visualization. I think it's a very powerful thing, and it keeps us centered. It's something that I do every day, and it's something that I talk to our coaches and trainers about doing every day. But once we actually develop a good process for the mind, I think body comes next, and taking care of your body adds confidence level. Being able to be happy in your own skin, I think, is really, really important. I think a lot of kids and people in general just struggle with that. And so being able to figure out how to move really well as a human being before we move really well as an athlete is valuable. When you're done playing, it's, can you do the daily things as a human being that allow you to just function? And so let's focus on that too. So the mind and then the body, and being as strong and capable as possible as an athlete, I can do more with that whenever we start to focus on the skills. If I have a person who's very strong mentally that I know can handle anything, and I have a kid who has a good body, or we say it's a really drivable car, right? Is the car broken down, or is the car functioning? If I have a good mind and a good body that's functioning, the skills typically take care of themselves. So when you really reverse engineer just sports in general, I think we focus so much on skills, and really it comes down to, are we mastering our mindset? And are we mastering our bodies? Because that's going to allow everything else to perform at the level it should. And if you see kids that play at any high level, whether it's high school, college, or professionally, typically those are the two things they talk about all the time.
That makes a ton of sense. And I'm just visioning all these Instagram trainers that are skill training, right? And I'm sure you see it in the baseball world. Obviously, my page is filled with basketball. But with that, I'm curious, as someone who wants to implement that, I do a little bit, but I would love to learn a little bit more about how you teach, like what activities, how do you, is it little teachings before a skill session? Do you have classroom sessions? How do you, kind of build a curriculum around the mind and body?
Yeah, so we're actually in the process of rebuilding our new mindset training curriculum to be a little bit more foundational for the youth athletes, because the first one that we created was very much for high school and college players, where it was very detailed on time management, organization, managing your 168, on knowing how many hours you have in a week and how you're mastering those. And what you realize is that young kids, they have so many things that they're going through. They're dealing with the car ride home, they're dealing with friends at school, they're dealing with being cut from a team that they really wanted to play on, or should I play with my friends, or should I try and really take this game to the next level? And those are real things that we need to look at when we're talking to youth athletes. Like the conversation about whether they should play with their friends or play on this elite travel team at 12 years old is stressful for a kid, and a lot of the reasons why they stop playing competitively. So coming up with curriculums, and basically, like I said, we're reverse engineering that right now to be able to put something together for youth athletes, but really managing what their struggles are. And I think for a long time we said, you need to toughen up and you need to figure it out. And it's more like, well, we're also dealing with kids that don't necessarily know how to do that yet. So how do we put them in an environment that is adverse, but then provide them the resources to be able to get through it? And a lot of it really from a coaching perspective is caring about who you're talking to and being present in the conversation. And I think a lot of times as coaches, we look at what that kid could be and look in the future of what we want them to be potential wise, instead of dealing with their problems and adversities right now. So when a kid, and I'm actually doing this right now, I have a couple kids that are coming to me saying they're having a very unfortunate experience in their summer travel. And the conversation is, well, why? What is the issue? And how can we basically look at this as a great learning experience for you and change the script on the way you're thinking about it? And what I do a lot is talk about gratitude and being thankful. Like, what are the 3 things that you're most thankful for outside of sport? What are you thankful for in life? Because when you think about gratitude and being thankful for certain things, then typically you see the positive in a lot of situations, no matter how bad it is. And so identifying, it could be as simple as, hey, you know what? I woke up this morning and I'm healthy. Yeah. You're really lucky to be in that situation, because there's a lot of kids your age that aren't as lucky, that have issues that they're dealing with. And then, thinking about like, wow, you know what? I'm really lucky that I get to go to a trainer and I can try and make my career better. You are very lucky, because there's thousands and thousands of kids that don't have those opportunities. And when you start to look at the things that you do have and that you are privileged to have, you start to see the value and the benefit in being able to do those things. And so having conversations, and we do a lot of free seminars, at my place, where I bring in parents and athletes and coaches to just talk about, the things that we have that are going well in the industry, in the baseball and softball industry, in the sports performance industry. And we do a lot of mindset training with them too, where I'll educate, a lot of coaches and parents about those things. So really it's education and getting people to understand the real value in what we're doing. And I think creating the curriculum so that kids can learn at their own pace, I think, is very important. And that's kind of how we start.
Got you. And so when you're building this curriculum, is it online? Is it in person? Because you talked about kind of having it be, like a teacher, right? We're pretty much teachers, as that's what I think about myself as like teachers of life, right? Teachers of sport, whether it's basketball, baseball, teachers of the mind, and just like teachers, that are teaching history and math. Every student learns at a different rate. Some students are hungry. They want more and more. So how do you engage and keep everyone active that are on their different kind of trajectories of learning about life?
Yeah, there's both. And like you said, and you said it great, like everybody learns at a different rate and everybody learns at a different pace and a different style. I learn by seeing. So I need to see somebody visualize, have a good experience with visualization, and watch that turn into goals. And so when I saw that, that was a click moment for me personally. But that's why we do both. I have an online curriculum that we use for all the athletes that train with us. It's part of their program. Actually, starting in October, it's going to be something that everybody's going to be given when they sign up. But then we also have monthly in-person meetings at my place where we just have a generalized focus, whether it's growth versus fixed mindset, mental performance training, time management. We do a lot of those things in person because people like to have dialogue. They like to talk. And I think a lot of kids now, because the phone is so entrenched in what they have and what they look at, a lot of kids look at stuff online, but then have a really hard time compartmentalizing that to somebody else. So we do in person because I think by talking about it, it gets rid of that uncomfortability of not being able to talk about, mindset and visualization. When I talk to a lot of high school kids about meditation and visualization training, they're like, well, why do I need that? I'm like, well, you don't necessarily need it, but it's an aid for you. It's something that's going to help you realize where you want to go and actually start to dream again, rather than looking online and having somebody tell you what their dreams are. And so when you start to think about the things that are valuable for yourself, you got to start to put together the blueprint of how to get there. And so I think that value in both. The hard part about the online is that most of the time it's just videos that you put online that people can look at month by month or week by week. I really like in person, but it's time. You have to be willing and able to give away your time. And I think when you look at value, there shouldn't be a dollar sign attached to it. If you're really trying to help kids, that's why we do free sessions. And I think the free sessions have been huge. We've had anywhere from 50 to 100 people at a specific session just trying to learn about the mindset, which I think is super valuable.
That is really valuable, and creating that access, right? Instead of like having it be, a certain price where only certain people can purchase that, right? It's available to, all people. Can you talk about the importance though of, obviously providing access, but also just commitment levels, and how do you walk through, an athlete coming into your program and talking about the importance of commitment, because you can't learn and grow your mindset in one day, in 1 week. A lot of times it takes at least minimum 3 months to build the foundation, the seeds, but really to reap the rewards, it takes at least a year, if not years of training.
Yeah, and I look at like a tree, and if you look at a tree, you could plant a little seed, but you don't really see the benefits of it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? And when
Mhm.
you're looking at growing the mind, like if we're lucky, we live 90, 100 years. Like it's going to take
Right.
time to master that. And we talk to our athletes, when I ask them, and I'll tell parents and athletes this all the time, if you're looking for something that's going to be a quick fix, I unfortunately probably can't help you because I want to do this long term. I want to be a part of your development long term. It has nothing to do with the dollar signs. It has to do with the fact that I understand that me being 31 years old, I'm still working on my mindset. And I've been doing it for a long time. And every day I'm still trying to get better. My patience is tested, as is everybody else's. Our stress levels are tested. Our adversity and trials, they change as we get older. And so when talking to parents, we do an initial evaluation and assessment with every kid that walks in, and the evaluation is to get to know them more. What are their stress levels like? What are their coping mechanisms? What are their goals? Those are things that we try to dive into in our initial meeting with those people. And the reason why we have those conversations and ask those questions is because I want to know, are they super short-term result-based people right now? And how long is it going to
Mhm.
take me to get them to switch that mindset? Or is it something that is, hey, I am long-term focused and I really want the process to get better. And I realize that this is going to take a long time because when you look at a lot of high school kids and the way that every sport is played out, you're in basketball, everybody wants a scholarship, right? Everybody wants to go on to the next level and play. But what's the process to get there? The scholarship is a byproduct of the work that you've done for a long time, right? It's not a goal that we're trying to attain because even when you do get the scholarship, you still have 4 to 5 years worth of competing to go. So if you're looking at the result, and I do this in baseball where I'll say, hey, how'd your game go? If the kid sends me back 3 for 3 with 3 singles or 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, I know that that kid is very result based, right? And I know that he's
Mhm.
looking at the way that his performance is on whether he had a good game or not. When I get the mindset switch to saying, hey, you know what? I had 3 really good at bats. I hit the ball hard twice. I didn't have a great at bat my third one, but here's what I learned. Okay, now we're process oriented. We realize that the 3 at bats that I had today are going to help gain information on how I can improve for the next day. And that's how I like the conversations to switch. So I'm very big into the words that a lot of the kids use with us because if they can change the way that they talk to me about their process, we're getting somewhere.
There we go. I got you. And so with that, I'm sure a lot of these similar principles is what you then go on and pass on to the coaches. So can you share a little bit more about how you shifted from, from coaching athletes to coaching coaches and making sure that, like we talked about before, that you've seen people in the cages working with athletes that, have done just as great of a job as you, and if not a better job. And how do you do that? Because as, a coach and an entrepreneur and a business owner, I'm curious about how to do that myself.
Yeah, and it's changing. It's changing what the goals are. And as entrepreneurs and business people, and like I have a big facility, I've got to keep the lights on. I get that, but when we
Yeah.
change the mindset away from making money to making impact, money follows, right? And we know that as entrepreneurs, just in general, right? And impact is number one. So when I talk to our coaches, it's about what is the kid gaining in the session. Some sessions are very skill focused, where they're going to gain more from the skills that they're doing that specific day. But there are times where a kid might only hit a bucket of balls, and the conversation that they had in the cage is more valuable. And a lot of times, and this was what started, a lot of coaches would leave that session and say, we really didn't get a lot of work in. And the way that I would talk to them was, no, but you did, because that kid is struggling. And the fact that you were there for them as a person and you create the culture that they can come talk to you about anything is so much more valuable than the number of swings that they took in the cage or the number of pitches that they threw on the mound. Them knowing that they can come to you about anything in life is so much more valuable than the amount of swings that they take or the amount of skill development or bat path that they had or the way that their shooting was today, whatever it is,
Yeah.
knowing that that's important. So we run in services with our staff every week, and we have what we call war rooms where we talk about the athletes. How is this athlete doing? How's their mindset? Have they been consistent? Do we have to reach out to the parents to see why they've been missing? Or, if I have a kid that texts me about a potential issue that they've had during games, is that something that we address right away? Or are we allowing that to linger? And by having those meetings with our staff on a weekly basis, we're able to basically identify problems faster so that we know how to train those sessions. So being able to say, all right, this kid's really struggling mentally right now. Before you guys pick up a bat and get in the cage and start swinging, make sure that he's okay. Make sure that she's okay. Make sure that life is okay with them. Ask them about their family. Ask them about their friends. We've been able to identify a culture at our place, and we live by our core values. We call them our diamond of success of character, leadership, hard work, and culture. And our coaches have to live by those first. And so in their lockers, in our small little break locker room, we have right on top of the lockers, we have our core values. And every single day when they leave the locker room, I want them to understand and know that that's the principles that I want them to live. And I want them to live those principles not only on social media, inside the facility and outside the facility. We want to be leaders. We want to have high character. We want to work really hard, and we want to drive a good culture, because people will come back to a good culture. They're not going to come back to a place that's only driven by results, right? And so by doing that, we've had kids from all over the place come in, and the one thing that they say is that we've done two things for them. We've driven a really good culture, and that their confidence is up. And that, to me, in the short, is that we're doing a really good job of making sure that our relationships are in the right place. So by having values and knowing what to say to a certain kid takes time, but it is 100% the only way to stay in this industry for a long time.
That makes a ton of sense. And it's totally a relationship game. And with that, you talk about culture, and I'm so interested in culture and fascinated with culture, and culture looks different for every organization. For you, I'm curious, how have you intentionally built your culture?
Yeah, it started with music. What music are you listening to? Right? Like, are the kids having a good time when they walk in? Or do they want to be a part of it? Is it something when they show up that they say, you know what, like, this is an environment that I can grow in, right? And by having music that is, and we actually have talked about this a lot within our staff, it's like, we're not playing music that we like. We're playing music at the times of the kids that are going to come in there and want to be a part of it. When they walk back there, they realize it's time to get to work. But it's also like, hey, let's have some fun, right? But then even on top of that, it's, if we do a group training session and we have 4 kids from 4 different high schools, what is the vibe like? Are they communicating? Are they talking to each other about their games, their teams, their swings? Is the conversation positive? If I have a kid that comes in and he's bashing his travel program, that we're going to stop that right now, because that's not going to work long term. Because if a kid's walking in our doors and they're talking negatively about whatever organization it is, the culture is not going to be good over the course of time, right? And so we had to start with ourselves. Like, yes, I think we do a great job, but I'm not going to sit here and talk negatively about anybody, because everybody's trying to do a good job, right? So by our coaches talking positively about everybody, it's transferred down into the athletes talking positively about their organization and program, but also talking positively about the other kids that they're training with. And the coolest thing that I've seen is that every time a kid plays against another kid from our facility in high school, they take a picture after the game and post it all over online, because they realize that they've all done the same work together. And that's it's a brotherhood, right? And they feel a part of something. And that's what we drive up. So music and positive conversations and making sure the kids are communicating, they know each other, has been a big reason why we've been able to keep the culture the way that it is for a long time.
That's huge. I mean, of course, the coach relationship with the athlete matters a lot, but you are talking about kind of facilitating that relationship and connection with players. And that is so huge, because those are the connections that, when they go on to business or nonprofit or, public service, those are the connections that they're going to have with each other that go well beyond, baseball. And maybe it's not even a professional connection. It's a personal connection where they're able to just hang out, have a beer when they become of legal age, and just are able to connect with each other on a deeper level. And I think, facilitating that is where a lot of the real power and change comes from, because, sports are all about building relationships.
For sure. And so and when I created our business model and how I wanted to run this, I noticed that a lot of baseball training facilities, they have this big space, but then each cage is a different coach working on different things. And so there's no cohesiveness from cage to cage, from hitting to pitching, from hitting to defense to strength and conditioning. There was no synergy. And when I partnered up with my business partner who runs our sports performance department, he oversees basically our whole operation now. And our goal was to basically say, how can we synergize a program where our coaches communicate, where it's not just money driven, where they're going to get their paycheck every week, where it really is just a bunch of friendships and relationships working together for what our mission is. And what we realized was that when our coaches are communicating cage to cage, and when one coach in a certain area can see a deficiency with an athlete in a different cage and can say something without any type of negative feedback from the other coach, that's when I know we're winning. When we can walk through the facility and communicate about a kid for the benefit of that kid together, we win. And so our coaches talk inner cage connectively. Athletes talk inner cage connectively to other coaches. And by doing that, we've realized that it's an open book and every single area in our facility can work together and everyone's eyes matter. And so if an athlete mentions something to another athlete about a swing or the way that they're warming up or they're throwing, that's positive because we're all just trying to help each other. And so we've been able to create that. We were very diligent about creating that from the beginning of making sure that everybody's working together, but it starts with the leadership group. It starts from the top down. So me being the CEO of our organization, I have to be the leader in that. I have to create that cohesiveness on the way down. And so by doing that, basically we all communicate. And there are times when multiple cages will work together in certain things, or we'll play a game together or something like that to add to the competitiveness. But that's how we've been able to drive the culture. And the cool thing is that culture is never going to go away because that is what we've created. And so now the kids love being a part of it.
Yeah, that's huge. And you're able to rise, all tides together by being able to collaborate. I'm curious with that. And in terms of, you talked about how to find deficiencies in terms of swings. Like, what is y'all's approach when it comes to giving feedback to athletes and how to do it in a manner that kind of builds them up and lifts them up? Versus, I feel like traditionally, if we think about old coaching, especially in baseball, I think I got my biggest, butt chewings in baseball, right? Versus, building a player up versus tearing them down.
Yep. And that whole entire conversation's changed. And the whole thing's gone to literally like the word love. Like I have to love you enough as a person to be able to help you. So as coaches, we're a guide. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to guide you in the right direction so that you learn it the way that makes sense for you. Right. So a lot of the way that we coach is more by asking questions. I want to ask you what you know. And most of the time they don't know enough to be able to self-correct, especially when they first get there. But it's about making sure that they are starting to think about those things themselves on what feels right or what they think works. Right. So a lot of the questions are, hey, what are you feeling right now? Because it seems like you're in a really good place. You're hitting the ball hard. You're consistent. What are you feeling? Okay, these are the 3 things that you feel. When you lose those, let's try and figure out how to get back to it, because the faster we can get back to those feels, the more consistent you're going to be. So instead of me telling them, hey, you have to put your hands here, you have to swing a certain way, everybody has their own style. We've watched the game a long time on TV, and you see 750 different styles throughout the course of a year. So there's no cookie cutter way to do this. Every person in basketball has a different style, right? So yes, there are fundamentals that we want to teach, but I want to teach them those fundamentals in a way that makes sense for them. So there is no one lingo, one way. Our coaches have to know so much about the swing in the game to be able to connect with each kid individually. And that's why we teach them and in-service them on a weekly basis so that they know the 5 or 6 or 7 different styles on how to teach a certain kid.
Right. No, that makes a ton of sense because, I think of the old way of teaching how to shoot a basketball, or even, when I was playing baseball and how to hit, right? Squish the bug and, load here. And so a lot of different things. When in reality, like there needs to be freedom, right? Like you mentioned, as I hear you talk, I can imagine all these different MLB players, obviously softball players, they have different loads, right? Their bat is at a certain angle, with basketball. All shooters look differently. Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, some of the best shooters of all time, they shoot different. Wow, weird. Like you don't have to put your elbow here and here, and a lot of times I'm asking like what's comfortable and then, some pointers around what gets better. And maybe it's less cookie cutter, may require more thinking, but that actually is going to result to kind of what your organization is all about, which is more impact and, helping people become confident in their own skin and just their own body. And so with that, how do you create and what does your culture look like, just with coaches? Because I feel like with that type of coaches, there has to be a level of buy-in and camaraderie with each other to really like want to go the distance for athletes.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. And to be honest with you, the majority of the coaches that we have full-time now, so I have a full-time model. I don't like hiring part-time. I want this to be what they do for a living. And the easiest way to do that is to get them right when they're done with college. And so the cool thing that we've been able to do is I've worked with or trained the majority of the coaches that we've hired full-time. The buy-in started when they were players, right? And it started by me caring about them and telling them that, like, I really care about your career, so let's try and figure this out. And they've fed into that and they bought into that as a player. So now as a coach, they realize that standard is not going to change. And as we've hired new coaches that, let's say, weren't a part of the organization, that's part of the onboarding and training is saying that, like, this, I hope this is the place for you. This may not be the place for you if impact isn't number one. If you're focused on the salary, if you're focused on the money, if you're focused on just being able to afford, a crazy lifestyle, this just might not be the place for you, because we really want to help people, right? And if you're willing to grow with us and get to the future with us, because we're going to go to crazy lengths in this game to help a lot of people, you're going to want to be along for this ride. And so it's more about providing, like, how we're going to get there. And I had to create that vision for them. If there is no place to go, if I don't create the vision for my team, how are they going to know where we're going? So I have to basically create the blueprint for them. And in our last staff meeting, that's what I did. I put up a 50-state blueprint, and I put a little location dot in each state, and I said, here's where we're going. And I don't know how we're going to get there yet, but I know that if we focus on making today perfect, and we make tomorrow really good, and we focus on the kids the next day and every single day after that, we have a chance to get there. But this is where I want to take you guys. I want you guys to be along this ride with me, because it's not about me, it's about the kids. And if we can do this together, we're going to make it. And so by providing the vision, I think what they've realized is that I have to do the day-to-day process really well, and we can get there together. So they're not looking at the money and how much they're making and, just kids hitting home runs and batting 500. They're so much more focused on the large scale impact, because I've showed them what that looks like. But I've also done a good job of creating that in their lives too before they became coaches, which is why they're bought into it.
That's huge. And painting that vision is so important, right? That, people have to know where they're going, the impact they're going in. And maybe this may, if it's a player that just finished college and they're playing career and they want to go, be an accountant and make stacks, that may be the right, mission for them. But for that athlete that wants to give back everything that was given, this organization will be a good fit. So just kind of defining that, I feel like makes a big difference. And as we kind of reach the ninth inning of our conversation, I'd love for you just to share, like, in 10 years, like, what impact do you want those athletes that have gone through your program, and even the coaches, to remember about the program?
Yeah, I want them to have a really good experience, so when they look back on it, they can be thankful for the time that they spent with us, whether it was 6 months or 5 years, or whether they work for us full time and they're with us for 10 to 15 years. I want them to look back and just feel really good about it. I want our coaches to get invited to weddings. I want them to know when somebody has a kid. I want them to know when they've gotten a new job or a promotion. That means so much, because I know that we made an impact enough that they thought about us when they had a successful part of their life. And yeah, you know what? Like, we have a kid in the big leagues, and I had a kid drafted in the first round. Like, that stuff is great, and I hope they make it, and I hope they stay there, and that's awesome too, because that's their career. But what about the 99% of kids that don't play professionally? I still want to have an impact on them as well. And so if they can look back and they can say, hey, you know what? These people meant so much to me during a big part of my life that I want them to know how my life is going. We've literally won. We're on the very top of the pyramid right there. Because I know, looking back on it, they're going to say, yeah, those people helped me get to where I'm at today. And it wasn't about the bat and the ball. It was about genuinely having a relationship that they care about me.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's number one. The bat and the ball, the basketball and the hoop, right? That's the bonus. That's the game. That's the vehicle that we get to teach and build relationships upon. So where can people find and connect with you, and also, learn more about your organization and support you all?
Yep. So I'm Ronnie Bernick on all social platforms. I travel the country coaching baseball. I've done a lot of work in, the pro game. I've done a lot of work in the college game and high school game. Hot Corner Athletics is our facility that we run. That's your basic baseball, softball training facility. But I also have a nonprofit organization called Hot Corner Futures Foundation, where we take in gently used equipment and we donate it to kids in need for free. Any donations that we take in, we give to local little leagues so that kids that can't afford to play have an opportunity to play. So we're multifaceted. We want to be a part of multiple organizations, and our biggest thing is being able to reach every kid no matter where they're at. So you can find us on all social platforms, either Hot Corner Futures Foundation, Hot Corner Athletics, or Ronnie Bernick. And anybody that's out there that just wants to be a part of what we're doing or wants to learn more, we're an open book. We just want to help people. So if there's anybody out there that's going through anything that needs somebody to talk to, that's why we do what we do.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing even cross sports, right, that you'd be able to help, mindset wise, body wise, right? The skill stuff, right? Everyone's overtrained. Everyone knows, there's so many people to go to, but the mindset and the leadership, that's where the real impact comes from. So I really appreciate our conversation. I'm feeling inspired. I got a couple pages of notes here. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time today, Ronnie.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've done a lot of speaking engagements too, so I'm more than happy to talk to people and jump on a Zoom. I mean, this is what we do.
Love it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.